As another year approaches, many people don't feel excited. They feel heavy, not because life gave them too little, but because they kept carrying too much. Old habits, old roles, old expectations, attachments that once felt necessary but now quietly drain their energy. Most people respond by adding more goals, more noise, more pressure to fix themselves. Stoic philosophy takes a different path. It teaches that strength doesn't come from accumulation. It comes from removal, from the discipline to cut what no longer serves you, even when it's familiar, even when it's comfortable. Before 2026 begins, this matters more than ever because the things weighing you down aren't always dramatic or obvious. They're subtle. They blend into daily life. They feel normal until you notice how tired you've become. This video isn't about reinventing yourself. It's about lightening the load you've been dragging forward year after year. The Stoics believed clarity appears when you stop clinging. Peace follows deliberate choice, and freedom begins the moment you decide that some things no longer deserve space in your life. Here are 9 things to cut before 2026. Not to become someone new, but to finally return to who you were meant to be. 1. Cut the need for approval. Many people don't realize how much of their life is shaped by the quiet need to be liked. Not admired, not respected, just approved of. It shows up in small ways. You hesitate before speaking honestly. You soften your opinions. You explain yourself too much, even when no explanation is owed. Over time, this habit trains you to look outward before you look inward. Your choices stop being guided by reason and start being filtered through reaction. Will this upset someone? Will this make me look bad? Will this cost me acceptance? From a Stoic perspective, this is one of the most exhausting ways to live, because the moment you depend on approval, you surrender control. Your peace becomes conditional. Your confidence becomes borrowed, and borrowed confidence is always fragile. The Stoics were clear about this. Your character is within your control. Other people's opinions are not. Yet many people reverse this order. They protect opinions and neglect character. They adjust themselves to remain palatable even when it costs them self-respect. This is why approval is so dangerous. It doesn't arrive violently. It settles in quietly, disguising itself as politeness, flexibility, or being easy to work with. But the cost accumulates. You begin to feel invisible in your own life. You sense a gap between who you are and how you act. That gap slowly erodes trust in yourself. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be rude or cold. It asks you to be anchored. When your actions are guided by values instead of validation, something shifts. Discomfort loses its grip. Rejection becomes survivable. Clarity replaces anxiety. Before 2026, this is something worth cutting, not the people in your life, not connection, but the reflex to seek permission before standing firmly in who you are. A simple practice helps. Before you explain yourself, pause. Ask one question: is this explanation serving truth, or is it serving approval? If it's the second, let the silence stand. You don't need to convince others to live with integrity. You only need the discipline to practice it consistently. When approval is removed from the equation, self-respect finally has room to grow. 2. Cut comfort that slowly weakens you. Comfort rarely feels like a problem at first. It feels earned. It feels reasonable. It feels like relief after years of effort. But comfort becomes dangerous when it turns unconscious. You stop choosing it. You start defaulting to it. You take the easier route not because it's wise, but because it's familiar. You delay effort. You postpone discomfort. You tell yourself there will be a better time to push harder. From the Stoic view, this is where strength quietly erodes, not through chaos, not through failure, but through softness that goes unchallenged. The Stoics never argued against rest. They argued against indulgence that dulls the will. There is a difference. Rest restores you so you can act again. Comfort, when overextended, trains you to avoid action altogether. You can see this pattern everywhere, staying in routines that no longer challenge you, choosing convenience over discipline, allowing minor discomforts to dictate major decisions. None of this feels dramatic. That's why it works. A comfortable life can still feel empty. You have enough, yet feel underpowered. You're safe, yet restless. You're busy, yet strangely unfulfilled. Stoicism teaches that growth requires friction, not suffering for its own sake, but voluntary resistance that sharpens the mind and steadies the character. When all resistance is removed, so are the conditions that build resilience. Before 2026, this is worth examining honestly. Where has ease become the priority instead of strength? Where have you avoided difficulty, not because it was wrong, but because it was uncomfortable? Cutting destructive comfort doesn't mean living harshly. It means choosing effort deliberately. Simple practices matter. Do the difficult task first. Sit with mild discomfort instead of escaping it immediately. Train yourself to stay present when your instincts tell you to withdraw. These small acts rebuild inner authority. The goal isn't to suffer more. The goal is to stop being governed by avoidance. When comfort no longer decides for you, clarity returns, and with clarity comes a quieter, stronger confidence that doesn't depend on ease to survive. 3. Cut relationships that drain more than they give. Not every relationship that lasts is healthy. Some persist simply because they've existed for a long time. History can feel powerful. Shared memories, shared struggles, familiar roles, but history alone is not a reason to keep giving access to your time, energy, and attention. Many people sense this, yet ignore it. They feel tense after certain conversations, smaller after certain interactions, obligated instead of connected. From a Stoic perspective, this is not loyalty, it is neglect of self-respect. The Stoics believed your inner state is worth protecting, not aggressively, not defensively, but deliberately. When a relationship consistently leaves you depleted, distracted, or resentful, something important is being violated. Not etiquette, not kindness, balance. This doesn't mean cutting people off impulsively. Stoicism is not emotional withdrawal, it is emotional clarity. Some relationships survive on habit, not mutual growth. Others rely on who you used to be, not who you are becoming. And some remain intact only because you fear the discomfort of change. Avoidance has a cost. When you give prolonged access to people who drain you, your energy has less room to recover. Your attention fragments, your patience shortens, your inner world grows noisy. The Stoics warned against this quietly. Peace is fragile when surrounded by constant disturbance. Before 2026, this is worth facing honestly. Ask yourself which relationships feel reciprocal, which feel obligatory, which require you to shrink to maintain harmony. Cutting unhealthy relationships doesn't always mean ending them. Sometimes it means changing the terms. Less availability, clearer boundaries, fewer explanations. You don't owe everyone the same level of access. That isn't cruelty, it's discernment. A simple rule helps. Notice how you feel after interaction, not before it. Energy doesn't lie. When relationships support steadiness instead of strain, your mind regains space, and in that space, strength quietly returns. 4. Cut complaining without responsibility. Complaining often feels harmless. Sometimes it even feels justified. You're tired, you're frustrated, you're reacting to circumstances that don't seem fair. But over time, complaining becomes more than expression. It becomes a habit, and habits shape identity. From a Stoic perspective, repeated complaining is not release, it is rehearsal. Each complaint reinforces the belief that something outside you controls your inner state, your mood, your peace, your sense of power. The Stoics understood hardship. They simply denied the usefulness of surrendering agency to it. When complaining lacks responsibility, it weakens the mind. It trains you to observe problems without engaging your capacity to respond. You speak, but nothing changes. You vent, but remain stuck. This is why Stoicism draws a sharp line between observation and lamentation. Observation asks, what is happening? What is within my control? What action is required? Complaining asks why this is happening to me, why it won't change, why someone else won't fix it. The difference is subtle, but the outcome is profound. A life filled with complaint feels heavy, not because circumstances are unbearable, but because the mind feels powerless within them. Before 2026, this is worth cutting. Not awareness, not standards, but the habit of verbalizing frustration without directing it toward action. A simple practice helps. When you notice yourself complaining, pause. Ask one question: what response is available to me right now? If there is none, practice acceptance. If there is one, act quietly. Stoicism doesn't demand silence, it demands responsibility. When complaints turn into decisions, energy shifts, the mind regains traction, and the noise that once drained you begins to fade. 5. Cut obsession with what you can't control. Much of modern exhaustion comes from one mistake repeated daily: trying to manage outcomes that were never yours to command. You replay conversations, you predict reactions that haven't happened, you worry about decisions other people may or may not make. This feels like preparation. In reality, it's self-imposed pressure. The Stoics named this clearly: some things are within your control, others are not. Confusing the two is where peace disappears. When your attention clings to what you cannot govern, the mind never rests. It stays alert, tense, reactive, not because danger is present, but because control is imagined. Overthinking is often praised as thoughtfulness. Most of the time, it's resistance dressed up as intelligence. You think instead of acting, you analyze instead of deciding, you anticipate instead of responding. Stoicism offers a quieter alternative. It asks you to place effort only where it can actually matter. Your judgment, your response, your conduct, everything else is commentary. Before 2026, this is a habit worth cutting. Not awareness, not responsibility, but the mental fixation on outcomes you cannot secure. A simple practice helps restore balance. When a worry appears, name it. Is this something mine to act on or only to accept? If action is possible, take one measured step. If not, release it deliberately. This is not indifference, it is discipline of attention. When you stop chasing control, clarity returns, energy concentrates, decisions become calmer, cleaner, and far more effective. Freedom doesn't come from mastering everything around you. It comes from mastering where your effort belongs. 6. Cut digital noise that steals your attention. Very few people feel truly alone anymore, and that is part of the problem. Your attention is constantly being pulled. Notifications, headlines, messages, opinions you didn't ask for, a steady stream of input that never fully stops. None of it feels overwhelming on its own, but together it fragments the mind. From a Stoic perspective, attention is not a small thing. It is one of your most valuable resources. Where it goes, your life follows. When attention is scattered, judgment weakens. When judgment weakens, decisions become reactive. And when decisions are reactive, peace becomes fragile. The Stoics lived without screens, but they understood distraction deeply. They warned against a mind that is never settled, a mind that jumps from stimulus to stimulus without choosing where to rest. Digital noise trains exactly that kind of mind. You check your phone without intention. You consume information without direction. You react before you reflect. Over time, this creates a subtle exhaustion. Not physical, mental. You feel busy yet unfocused, informed yet unclear, connected yet strangely distant from yourself. Before 2026, this is something worth cutting. Not technology itself, but unconscious consumption. Stoicism does not ask you to withdraw from the world. It asks you to engage it deliberately. A simple practice can change everything. Decide when you will give your attention and when you will protect it. Create moments of intentional silence. Remove inputs that add noise without meaning. Notice what happens when your mind is no longer constantly interrupted. Thoughts deepen. Emotions stabilize. Decisions slow down in a good way. When attention is reclaimed, inner authority returns, and with it comes a sense of calm no notification can replace. 7. Cut delaying hard decisions. There is a quiet form of fear that doesn't look like panic. It looks like postponement. You tell yourself you need more information, more time, better conditions, but beneath the logic, there is hesitation. Not because the decision is unclear, but because the responsibility it brings feels heavy. Stoicism treats delay with honesty. Not all waiting is wisdom. Sometimes waiting is avoidance dressed as patience. Hard decisions create tension because they close doors. They force you to accept consequences. They require you to stop imagining every possible outcome and commit to one. That discomfort is exactly why many people delay. They stay in situations they've already outgrown. They tolerate routines they secretly resent. They postpone conversations that would bring clarity because clarity would demand action. Over time, delay compounds. The decision doesn't disappear. It follows you. It drains energy quietly, sitting in the background of your thoughts. The Stoics warned against this mental debt. Unmade choices occupy space. They fragment attention and weaken resolve. Before 2026, this is something worth cutting. Not caution, not thoughtfulness, but the habit of postponing what you already know must be addressed. A simple practice brings momentum back. When you notice a decision you've been avoiding, ask one question. What am I actually afraid of losing? Name it honestly. Then ask a second question. Is the cost of delay lower than the cost of action? Most of the time it isn't. Stoicism doesn't promise comfort after decisions. It promises relief. Because once a choice is made, energy returns. The mind stops circling. Forward motion becomes possible again. Clarity rarely arrives before action. It follows it. 8. Cut the identity you've outgrown. One of the most difficult things to cut from your life is not a habit, a possession, or even a person. It's an identity. Not the one you consciously chose, but the one you slowly inherited. The version of yourself that once made sense, once protected you, once helped you survive a different season of life. Many people mistake this for loyalty. They believe staying the same is a sign of integrity. In reality, it is often fear wearing the mask of consistency. From a Stoic perspective, clinging to an outdated identity is not stability. It is stagnation. An identity is meant to serve your character, not imprison it. When life changes and you refuse to adapt, tension appears. You feel it as restlessness, as quiet frustration, as the sense that you are performing instead of living. This is how many people become strangers to themselves. They keep being the dependable one long after it drains them. They keep being the agreeable one long after it costs them honesty. They keep being the strong one even when silence and rest are what strength now requires. Stoicism does not romanticize consistency for its own sake. It values alignment. The Stoics understood that character must remain firm, but roles must remain flexible. Virtue is stable. Identity is contextual. When you confuse the two, growth becomes threatening. Letting go of an old identity often feels dangerous because it removes predictability. Others may react differently. Expectations shift. You no longer know exactly how you will be perceived. For many, this fear is enough to stay trapped. They continue playing a role they've outgrown because it feels safer than uncertainty. They repeat patterns that no longer reflect who they are becoming. They defend an image instead of cultivating truth. But there is a cost. Living inside an outdated identity requires constant effort. You monitor your behavior. You edit your reactions. You suppress impulses that no longer align with the role you're trying to maintain. This is exhausting. Over time, the gap between your inner reality and your outer behavior widens. And that gap slowly erodes self-trust. The Stoics warned against this kind of fragmentation. They believed inner coherence was essential to a steady life. When your actions reflect your values, the mind settles. When they don't, tension accumulates. Before 2026, this is something worth facing honestly. Ask yourself which version of you is still being performed out of habit. Where are you maintaining an image instead of acting from conviction? These questions are uncomfortable because they remove excuses. Outgrowing an identity doesn't mean rejecting your past. It means respecting it enough to move forward. What once served you may no longer be necessary. What once earned approval may now limit authenticity. What once kept you safe may now keep you small. Stoicism doesn't ask you to reinvent yourself dramatically. It asks you to subtract what no longer fits. A simple practice can help clarify this transition. Notice where you feel friction in daily life. Not resistance to effort, but resistance to expression. Moments when you think, "This isn't me anymore," yet continue anyway. Those moments are signals. Another practice is to examine effort. Where do you expend energy maintaining appearances? Where do you feel relief when no one is watching? That contrast reveals where identity has turned into performance. Letting go of an old identity often happens quietly. No announcement, no confrontation, just a series of small, honest choices made consistently. You speak more directly. You stop over-explaining. You allow others to adjust instead of adjusting yourself first. Some people will resist this change, not because you've done something wrong, but because your growth disrupts their expectations. Stoicism prepares you for this. It teaches that discomfort in others is not a signal to retreat. It is often proof that you are no longer living on autopilot. When you release an identity you've outgrown, something important happens internally. Energy returns. Decisions feel cleaner. You no longer have to remember who you're supposed to be. You simply act. Before 2026, cutting an outdated identity is not about becoming someone new. It's about removing the weight of someone you no longer are. When that weight is gone, what remains is not confusion. It is clarity. A clarity that feels calm, grounded, and quietly powerful. 9. Cut the illusion that you have more time. One of the most persistent illusions people live under is the belief that time is abundant, not infinite but sufficient, enough to delay, enough to revisit later, enough to postpone what feels uncomfortable today. This illusion doesn't shout, it whispers. You'll do it next year. After things calm down, when you're more prepared, when life gives you a clearer signal. From a Stoic perspective, this is one of the most dangerous assumptions a person can make, because time is not something you possess, it's something you pass through. The Stoics spoke often about mortality, not to provoke fear, but to sharpen awareness. Memento mori was never about anxiety, it was about precision. When you live as if time is guaranteed, urgency dissolves. Choices lose weight. Days blur together. Slowly, without noticing, you begin living in postponement mode. Important conversations are delayed. Necessary changes are avoided. Meaningful decisions are deferred. Not because you don't care, but because you believe there will always be another opportunity. The Stoics were clear. Opportunity does not announce when it expires. Most regret is not caused by reckless action. It is caused by inaction justified by imagined time. You see this everywhere. People stay in unfulfilling situations because leaving feels disruptive now. They tolerate inner dissatisfaction because it feels manageable today. They ignore quiet warnings from their own conscience because nothing has collapsed yet. But not yet slowly becomes too late. Stoicism asks you to confront this illusion gently but firmly. You are not promised a later moment when courage will feel easier. You are not guaranteed a future version of yourself who will act more decisively. What you have is now, and the ability to choose within it. This is not meant to create pressure, it is meant to restore clarity. When you accept that time is limited, trivial concerns lose power. Petty anxieties shrink. What truly matters becomes visible. Before 2026, this is something worth cutting. Not planning, not patience, but the habit of assuming you'll always have more time to live deliberately. A simple practice can recalibrate your perspective. Ask yourself, if this were the last year I could live intentionally, what would I stop tolerating? What conversations would I stop postponing? What parts of myself would I stop ignoring? These questions are not morbid. They are grounding. Another practice is to notice repetition. Where do your days look the same? Where do your intentions reset every week without progress? Repetition without movement is often a sign of postponed courage. The Stoics believed urgency does not destroy peace, avoidance does. When you stop assuming unlimited time, something shifts internally. Decisions gain weight, presence deepens. You become less willing to trade meaning for comfort. This does not mean rushing, it means choosing to act when clarity is available, choosing to speak when honesty is required, choosing to change when stagnation is evident. Time does not need to be feared, it needs to be respected. Respect begins with acknowledging its limits. Before 2026 arrives, cutting the illusion of more time is not about doing everything, it's about doing what matters now. Because a life lived deliberately is not built someday. It is built in the moments you stop waiting. Stoic philosophy was never designed to make life softer or more comfortable. It was designed to make you clearer, steadier, and less dependent on circumstances. If there is one quiet lesson beneath everything you've heard, it is this. Most of what weighs you down today was not forced on you. It accumulated slowly, through habits you never questioned, through roles you kept playing, through delays that felt harmless at the time. The Stoics understood that suffering often comes not from what happens to us, but from what we refuse to release. They didn't chase constant improvement, they practiced intentional reduction. As 2026 approaches, the task is not to reinvent your personality or rebuild your life from scratch. It is to stop carrying what no longer belongs to you. This requires honesty, not dramatic gestures, not public declarations, but quiet decisions made consistently. One conversation you stop avoiding, one habit you no longer justify, one attachment you loosen. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. You don't need certainty to begin. You don't need perfect timing. You only need the willingness to act without waiting for comfort. Stoicism teaches that peace is not found in control, but in alignment. When your actions reflect your values, the mind settles. When they don't, no amount of distraction will bring rest. Before 2026 begins, allow yourself this discipline. Not to become colder, not to withdraw from life, but to engage it with fewer burdens and sharper judgment. Cut what weakens you. Keep what strengthens you. Step into the next chapter not louder, not busier, but lighter, clearer, and quietly in control of your direction. Cutting is not an act of loss. It is an act of selection. Every time you remove something that drains you, you create space. Space for focus, space for calm, space for choices that are no longer rushed or reactive. The Stoics believed a good life is built through subtraction as much as ambition, by saying no more often, by choosing depth over excess, by refusing to live distracted from what truly matters. As you move toward 2026, let this be your quiet advantage.